A remote farm in rural Germany. A family hears footsteps in the attic, but finds no one. Footprints appear in the snow leading to the house, but none leading away. Then, one by one, people are lured into a barn and brutally murdered. But the horror didn't end there, because after the killings, someone stayed. They fed the animals, ate the family's food, and lived inside the house with the bodies for days. Over a century later, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of the most disturbing unsolved crimes in history. Tonight, we step inside a mystery that refuses to die. In 1922, Hinterkaifeck was a small, isolated farmstead in Bavaria, Germany. It sat nearly a mile from the nearest village, surrounded by forest and farmland. Quiet, secluded. The farm was home to the Gruber family. Andreas Gruber, the patriarch. Living with him were his wife, their widowed daughter Victoria, and Victoria's two children, 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Joseph. Also living on the farm was the family's maid. It was a simple life, but in the days leading up to the murders, something changed. In the months leading up to the murders, Andreas Gruber began mentioning unusual events to neighbors. He told people he had been hearing footsteps in the attic late at night. When he investigated, he found nothing. Still, the sounds reportedly continued. Then came another strange discovery. One day, Andreas found a newspaper on the property that didn't belong to the family. He hadn't purchased it, and none of the neighbors claimed it either. It suggested someone else had been near the farm, or inside it. Around the same time, a set of house keys went missing. They were never found. But the most chilling detail involved the snow. Andreas reportedly noticed footprints leading from the forest to the farmhouse. Just one set. They came from the tree line, straight toward the house. But there were no tracks returning to the forest. Whoever made them had arrived, and apparently never left. Despite this, Andreas didn't alert authorities. The atmosphere in the house was changing. The previous maid became increasingly uneasy. She later claimed the farm felt strange, that she sensed something wasn't right. Eventually, she quit. Her replacement arrived on March 31st, 1922, the very day of the murders. She had no knowledge of the strange events. By nightfall, she would become one of the victims. Looking back, these incidents feel less like coincidence, almost as if someone had been watching, learning the routines of the family. And when the time came, they already knew the farm like their own. The evening of March 31st, 1922, began like any other at Hinterkaifeck. The family went about their routines in the quiet isolation of the farm. Sunset would have brought darkness quickly. In rural Bavaria at the time, night meant near total blackness outside the glow of oil lamps. Beyond the farmhouse stretched open land and forest, silent and empty. At some point after nightfall, something drew members of the household toward the barn. Investigators later believed the killer used a disturbance to lure them out. Andreas Gruber was likely the first to step out. The barn was only steps from the house, and farm animals required constant attention. But he never returned. Then came his wife, Cecilia. Whether she went looking for him or was also drawn by a sound, no one knows. But she too entered the barn and never came back. Next was Victoria. Perhaps she grew concerned. Perhaps she followed after noticing the delay. She also walked into the darkness of the barn. And then, young Cecilia. Inside the barn, Investigators later reconstructed what likely happened. The killer waited in the shadows. Using a mattock, a heavy farming tool with a sharp blade, they attacked each victim as they entered. The strikes were focused and deliberate. In the stillness of night, it's possible the others inside the house heard little, if anything. One of the most tragic details involved young Cecilia. Examinations suggested she may have survived for some time after the initial attack. Strands of her own hair were found in her hands, believed to have been pulled out in distress while she lay injured in the hay. Back in the house, 2 people remained, the new maid and 2-year-old Josef. At some point after the barn attacks, the killer entered the home. The maid was killed in her room. Little Josef was killed in his crib. The order of these events can't be known for certain, but what is clear is that the violence moved from barn to house. By the end of the night, 6 people were dead, and the farm fell into silence. In the days following March 31st, neighbors later recalled seeing thin smoke rising from the farmhouse chimney. That meant someone was tending the fire. Someone was inside the house. The livestock were also cared for. The cows had been milked. The animals were fed. On a working farm, this was a daily responsibility. Neglect would have been obvious within a day. That suggests someone continued the chores, someone familiar with farm life. Then there was the dog. The family dog was found alive and secured in the barn. It had been fed. This was not the behavior of someone fleeing a crime scene in panic. It was the behavior of someone staying. Mail continued to be delivered to the property. Newspapers arrived. None were collected. To passers-by, the farm simply looked quiet. But small signs of absence began to stack up. The family missed church. The children did not appear at school. No one was seen at the local market. One particularly eerie account came from a mechanic who visited the farm to repair a piece of equipment. He later stated he completed his work and left without realizing anything was wrong. He found it odd that no one from the family interacted with him directly. If true, it raises a haunting possibility. The killer may have been nearby, inside the house, watching. Some believe the murderer used those days to gather supplies or prepare to disappear. But another interpretation exists, one far more disturbing, that the killer felt comfortable there, comfortable enough to remain in the home of the people they had just killed, sleeping under the same roof, all while the victims lay undiscovered. By the time neighbors finally became concerned enough to investigate, several days had passed. The quiet farm on the edge of the forest had been holding its secret the entire time, and whoever committed the murders had already vanished without a trace. On April 4th, neighbors grew concerned when the family failed to appear at church and the children missed school. A small group went to check on the farm. What they found inside the barn was horrific. 4 bodies stacked in the hay. Blood, stillness, silence. Inside the house, they found the maid and young Josef. The realization hit quickly. This was no accident. This was murder. And it had happened days earlier. Police interviewed over 100 suspects. Many theories emerged. Robbery was quickly ruled out. Money and valuables remained untouched. This wasn't a random crime. It was personal. Rumors swirled around Victoria's relationships and possible disputes over young Joseph's paternity. Some believed family conflicts could be connected. Others suspected former employees or neighbors. One particularly disturbing theory involved a former suitor who allegedly became obsessed with Victoria and never fully moved on. but no evidence ever solidified into charges. The mattock, believed to be the murder weapon, was later found on the property, suggesting the killer used a tool from the farm itself. Yet the case stalled, and eventually, it went cold. With no arrests and limited forensic tools, speculation filled the gaps. Many investigators believed the killer was someone the family knew. The victims were lured calmly into the barn. That suggests trust. There were no signs of forced entry, no signs of panic before the attacks. This points towards someone they didn't fear until it was too late. The Gruber household reportedly had tensions and complicated relationships. Some researchers believe internal disputes or hidden resentments could have played a role. But with all family members dead, secrets may have died with them. Another theory suggests someone had been secretly living on the farm before the murders. This could explain the attic footsteps, the missing keys, the newspaper, the footprints. If someone was hiding there, they would know routines and vulnerabilities. But why remain hidden for so long? And why attack when they did? Some argue the killer was a transient laborer or drifter seeking shelter. But this fails to explain the personal nature of the attacks and the knowledge of the property. Most experts find this unlikely. The Hinterkaifeck farm was eventually demolished. Some believed the land itself carried a darkness. Over the decades, investigators revisited the case, even using modern profiling techniques. Several suspects were named over the years, but none could be proven. To this day, no one has been officially identified as the killer. The case remains open in spirit, if not in law. The Hinterkaifeck murders remind us that sometimes the most terrifying mysteries don't happen in cities or battlefields, but in quiet places, in ordinary homes, in the spaces where people feel safest. Somewhere in the Bavarian countryside, 6 people lost their lives to a killer who vanished into history. No confession, no justice, no answers, just silence. And the unsettling thought that for several days, a murderer walked the halls of that lonely farmhouse, completely unnoticed.